Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to give you a little information. I've been recently asked a couple of times the icon that I use on my YouTube page here, Everything Football 62. Also, that same icon is also used on my Twitter page. The picture of the gentleman there in my icon is his name was Jim Parker, the great Jim Parker, I should say. Jim Parker was an offensive tackle for the Baltimore Colts. In the mid 50s up into that of the mid 60s. I think he played like 11 years or so. It was on those great Baltimore Colts team, and he literally kept Johnny Unitas upright. Jim Parker was one of the greatest linemen that have ever played in the modern era. He basically ushered in what you want out of an offensive lineman, what you want out of an offensive tackle. Jim Parker went to he played at Ohio State, and he was an Outland Trophy winner. That's the best lineman in college football. He was actually the second African American to actually win that award. He gets drafted by Baltimore in 1957. He plays from 57 to 1967. Jim Parker, like I said, was a tackle. He also played guard. He was a two-time NFL champion. He went to the Pro Bowl 8 times, 9 times, 10 times All-Pro, 9 times first team All-Pro, and about 6 or 7 of those times was at tackle, and the other times was at guard, because he actually switched to guard in the latter part of his career, last 3 or 4 years of his career. That's when and basically by the time that he got inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame after he retired and got inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1973, he was the first full-time lineman to ever get inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's the first, also I think, the first African American lineman to get inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And he was considered, by the time that he finished playing, to be considered the greatest offensive lineman of all time, which would later give us basically a segue into when you started having great linemen in the game, or who would be compared to what he had did, or the type of lineman, the type of impact that he had. That would be people like John Hanna and Anthony Munoz, who are considered in this day, even though they played from the 70s into the 80s, and from the 80s into the 90s, was considered the greatest offensive lineman, period. But the first one was considered that of Jim Parker. He was the first one. He was the first one that actually Paul Zimmerman, who used to write for Sports Illustrated, or they used to call him Dr. Z and whatnot. He polled about 25 old timers back in the day, and listened to who was the best offensive lineman ever. And Parker was probably, he was listed as the best out of all of them. He was considered the best pure pass blocker of all time. And he was noted as basically being the greatest offensive lineman of all time. And even to this day, you're talking about someone that was around, with his size, even at that time. And he was basically what you can consider your modern day lineman, at around 6'3", 6'4", about anywhere from 285 to 300 pounds, which is your size of your tackles nowadays. And he was this size back in the latter part of the 50s, going into that of the latter part of the 60s, tonight from 57 to 67. So he played about 11 years in the NFL. And so he was athletic, he could move, he could run. And so that was later on started giving birth. And he, like I said, he played tackle as well as guard. Some of these other linemen that they talk about, great, they played at basically one position. They either was a guard or they either was a tackle. So later on, throughout the 70s into the 80s, John Hanna, because they remember they had Sports Illustrated, was he's the great offensive lineman of all time. And then later on, Munoz is known as probably the greatest tackle of all time, but he's also thrown in the argument as being the greatest lineman of all time. So your top greatest lineman of all time, what a lot of them say, Jim Parker is the first one that was a poll that was ever even thought about, because he was the first full-time lineman that was ever inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And from what he did and the teams that he played on, from the great quarterback to Johnny Unitas to great wide receiver Raymond Berry to the great running back that would basically Lenny Moore, who basically would give birth to people like that of Gale Sayers, and later from Gale Sayers on down into like these great backs that could do a lot of different things. Catching the ball out of the backfield as well as running the ball. People like Thurman Thomas, LaDainian Tomlinson, and all of these great guys coming out. He blocked for those types of people. A lot of Hall of Famers, a couple of championship teams. So that's one of the main reasons of using the icon. I use the icon because having played football in high school, played on the line, and also played linebacker. So, but I've always was the thing about the beauty of the running game and how when the running game, when you have the big men blocking up front, and how the running game can open up with a sweep or a trap play or the bootleg, and the beauty of a tackle turning out and a guard pulling, and he's in front of his quarterback, protecting his quarterback to get so he can plant his feet and fire that ball and get it to the receiver or dump it off or whatever needs to be done. The offensive linemen are always basically overlooked a lot because they don't really talk. They don't talk. It's nothing pretty, but they do all the dirty work. And if you don't have good offensive linemen, you don't have a good offensive team. You won't have a good running team, a good running game, and you won't have a good passing game. Everything starts up front. Again, like I said, one of my other broadcasts, I was just talking about when you get to a point of not running the football, you have to run the ball. And you got guys like I named earlier, and going back to my icon, Jim Parker. These guys was part of great running teams as well as great passing teams. He did it all. And that's one of the main reasons why I use it, because it starts up front. And he was one of the best that ever did it. To this day, he's been out of the league. He retired in 1967. So it's been over 50 years since he last played. But he will still be up there, even with some of the other great guys that came in between, whether it was Gene Upshaw, whether it was guys like Big Art Shell and all those guys. He's right. Jim Parker was basically he was the godfather of giving birth to you, Larry Allens and all the rest of these guys that would come later on in years and be great offensive linemen. And Jim Parker was definitely that one, and he should be saluted by everyone, and if anybody, just for your NFL history. So that's why I basically wanted to do this little piece on Jim Parker, and for those people that wanted to know about it, that asked me the question about him, that's who he was. A great offensive lineman, great player, and like I said, and he's one of those linemen that they led the way. And that's who it is, Big Jim Parker, Baltimore Colts. Jim Parker passed away a few years ago and everything, but he'll never be forgotten as far as I'm concerned. One of the greatest that ever did it. Right. So if you like to, subscribe to my page, Everyday Football 62, or check me out on Twitter, and we can talk or whatever, or just check me out, y'all. All right. Thank you.